This is the Big Stories Podcast, where we tell the amazing and inspiring stories from across the Big 12 Conference.
I'm your host, Cleon Wall. New quarterbacks, new energy, and new chapters all across the Big 12. We're heading to Morgantown and the Sunflower State in this episode. But first, let's get to the big stories, storylines.
The big stories, biggest storylines. Number 1.
Texas Tech's softball team dominated the regular season, only losing 3 conference games and 6 games overall. And yet they didn't win the conference tourney. That honor goes to the ASU Sun Devils. Tournament MVP Kenzie Brown threw a complete game shutout and only allowed 2 Red Raiders hits. 3 Sun Devil home runs in the third inning did all the damage, ending Texas Tech's streak of 33 consecutive scoreless tournament innings.
Number 2.
7 Big 12 softball teams earned bids to the 2026 NCAA tournament, which is the most the conference has sent since 2012. Texas Tech and Oklahoma State are both hosting regionals. ASU carries the conference's automatic bid as tournament champion, and Kansas makes its first NCAA tournament appearance since 2015.
Number 3.
Big news on the men's golf side, with the Big 12 setting a new conference record with 12 programs earning selections to the NCAA regionals. Oklahoma State headlined the group as the number 1 seed at the Marana Regional, following the Cowboys' conference record 13th Big 12 title. Arizona State and Texas Tech both landed number 2 seeds, and 4 individual Big 12 golfers earned spots as well. And that's going to do it for storylines. We are continuing our queries into new signal callers this season, and this week we are talking about West Virginia. And it's turned into the battle of a couple of juniors. Let's get some insight from Gold and Blue Nation's Ryan Decker.
West Virginia started 4 different quarterbacks in 2025 and only 1 returned to campus this offseason. That lone returning starter is Scotty Fox Jr., who had bright moments in his true freshman season, like accounting for 3 total touchdowns in an upset road win over number 22 Houston, but he also had some typical true freshman moments as well. Fox dealt with a hamstring injury during the latter stages of the spring and was limited in West Virginia's spring game. Fox's biggest competition for the starting job is Oklahoma transfer Michael Hawkins Jr., who saw the field in 9 games over 2 years in Norman, and his athleticism makes him a perfect fit for Rich Rodriguez's system. Fox and Hawkins will seemingly battle for the QB1 spot throughout the summer and well into fall camp.
All right, it's story time, and this week we're heading to Manhattan, Kansas. Kansas State doesn't have to worry about a new QB. They have Avery Johnson. Johnson and the rest of Wildcat Nation get a brand new coach in Collin Klein. Or should we say, it's former K-State QB and offensive coordinator Collin Klein returning home to hopefully return the Cats to glory. No pressure. Okay, maybe some pressure. That's why I asked John Kurtz of the Maw Podcast and the Open for Business podcast if there is more or less pressure on Klein coming into his first season, because I could see it going both ways.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Appreciate you having me on, Cleon. I would say probably less pressure, but the case for more pressure would just be that he's a first-time head coach, right? Chris Kleiman taking over had won all the national championships at North Dakota State, was pretty well established. I mean, his thing he liked to say over and over again was football is football when he would get the question about, can you make it at this level after coming from the FCS? And for Collin Klein, I mean, the guy's been in the SEC, right? So he was just seeing it at the highest level, but he has never actually been a head coach. I think the difference now, though, is the program is just in a much better state, and this is thanks to Chris Kleiman. I mean, K-State owes him a debt of gratitude for this, and just that he proved somebody other than Bill Snyder can win at K-State, because it had literally been almost a fact that nobody had outside of one guy in the 30s and then Bill Snyder. And Ron Prince came in, tanked the program for a little while. Snyder had to come back and rescue it once again. So Chris Kleiman showing that somebody else can win at a Big 12 championship level, consistently win 8+ games a season, has the program in, I think, a lot better shape for Klein now. But, I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of pressure here, and it is these situations are always awesome when they happen, when you hire the guy, the hometown legend. You think about been a lot of comparisons to Texas Tech and Cliff Kingsbury, because he was an offensive coordinator at Texas A&M when he got hired by Tech. and that didn't work out very well. And then you have an awkward ending with your revered alum, right? So it's a high risk, high reward situation. If things start to go south, then you don't want to have to turn on the guy that is the hero, that has his name on the stadium, in the Ring of Honor, like all that stuff. But I mean, having said that, I'm very, very bullish on Collin Klein as a head coach. I think he has a sky-high ceiling. I think he's incredibly impressive. You mentioned Bill Snyder. That's his coach. That's who he played for. He's got a lot of similar characteristics to him, just in a much more modernized way. And I think that's the biggest advantage he has, and the biggest thing that will help K-State in this moment is that he has a modernized approach that comes from being at the SEC at Texas A&M, where they spare no expense when it comes to football. Like, he saw how it works at the highest of high levels, and he now, I think, is going to pull K-State's athletic department basically into this new era of college sports. And I think that was really, really necessary. I don't think Kleiman just had it in him to do that, and you saw that and kind of how exasperated he got by the end and said, "I'm retiring." One of his quotes to the Manhattan Mercury after the fact was like, "I would die if I kept doing this." Collin is cut out for that right now. Kleiman was not, and frankly, I don't think the K-State athletic department really is. But now Collin is there, and I mean, this is a guy who's basically can go by one name at K-State, right? Like, you're going to listen to what he says. You're going to support him and get him what he needs because he's Collin Klein. So I think donors have really rallied around him, and he's going to wind up getting the support that he needs and that K-State needs because of the stature of what he has there.
The nice thing for Klein is that he has coached the guy who's going to be under center, or maybe in the shotgun or pistol formation, or whatever offense they're going to be running. He's familiar with Avery Johnson because he actually coached him before he went to Texas A&M. What can Klein do to mold him into that QB who becomes the consistent weapon that we've seen flashes of greatness of in the past?
Yeah, and I think you hit on the key to the season. I mean, to me, we could talk all we want about different position groups at K-State, but Avery Johnson is going to determine what the ceiling of this team is. He's got to be better. You look at the numbers and you would say, all right, that's been pretty good production over his time as a starter. But if you're actually watching it out on the field, pretty erratic, some high highs, some low lows. It just has not been like a consistency that you can rely on. And I would just describe it as like he hasn't really had it, to go win you a game when you need it. Like thinking about BYU, right? Like Bear Bachmeier is not always the flashiest guy, but when you need a play, that guy is going to put his head down and go get it. Like, he is gritty, he's tough, he's going to go get you the play when you need it. And I think Avery is kind of the total opposite, where he's much flashier, but when you really need a nitty-gritty yard or two here, like, he has not been the one to go get it. And I think that's what you hope Collin Klein can tap into. And Avery even referenced that at one of the spring football press conferences where he said, like, hey, my freshman year, so Avery's freshman year, he played a little bit with Will Howard still there, and he was mostly running the ball. He had a 5 rushing touchdown game against Texas Tech that year. And he said, look, when I was being coached by Collin, like, I was running harder. I felt like just freer, like more just cutting it loose, I think was the phrase he used when he was running the ball. Whereas the last couple of years, Kleiman and company got really worried about just keeping him healthy for the entire season. So I think it was sort of in his head, like, hey, I can't be that aggressive running the ball anymore. And it frankly took away the best asset that he has, which is his athleticism and speed. So that will be one thing I really look for, because that's been a fan frustration, is like, he won't just put his head down and go get 2 yards. He can be pretty ginger, when he's definitely trying to avoid hits. And you have to toe the line, right? Like, you don't want to turn into Sam Levitt where you can't play 2/3 of the season like what happened last year with Arizona State. But I think there definitely needs to be more of a correction back toward what Avery was as a freshman. And hey, I would point toward also Collin Klein's ability to work with Marcel Reed at Texas A&M as a really good sign here, because nothing against Marcel Reed, but I don't know that he's the most talented quarterback in the world, but Texas A&M did some great things with him last year, and Collin got a lot out of him and that offense. So that really gives me some hope that this is going to be a big step forward for Avery as a quarterback, because K-State will need it.
There's also a new offensive coordinator in Manhattan, Sean Gleason, who brings a lengthy resume as a play caller. How does his arrival change the identity of this offense? And who's actually going to be calling the plays in Manhattan?
Yeah, see, that's the thing with Gleason. I don't know how much of an imprint he is going to have on the offense, because this will be Collin's baby. You know, I mean, I think this is going to be Collin's deal. I would imagine he's going to be calling plays. The last time I heard him asked about it, it was before he actually had taken, or before he had hired Sean Gleason as an offensive coordinator. And he basically said, like, yeah, I think it'll probably be me, but we haven't decided for sure yet. I took that as like, it's going to be me, but I don't want to say that to limit who I can hire as an offensive coordinator, right? Which maybe that would cut down on the pool of candidates you would have to talk to on that. I think it's going to be Collin. And that'll be interesting because when he was at K-State, he was up in the booth. He was up in the booth at Texas A&M. Now, if you're the head coach, doing it from down on the field, obviously that is an adjustment. Gleason's another guy who was working in the SEC at Missouri, where they've had some real success. They've had some success at quarterback. Now, last year they dealt with a bunch of injuries, but before that, Brady Cook I thought was a really, really good quarterback that they developed. He spent some time at Oklahoma State once upon a time. So I think this is a guy that is sort of an up-and-comer, like Collin, has some potential. It's been a bit of a rocky road in his college career, but had a nice landing spot at Mizzou. I just don't know. I don't know how much to expect out of what his imprint will be on the offense specifically because Collin's going to be the guy.
On the other side of the ball, new defensive coordinator Jordan Peterson. He comes into Manhattan. A lot of hype with some of the things he did at Texas A&M, but it's his first time really being the guy in charge of everything. So what should Wildcat fans know about him and what kind of a defense he runs?
Yeah, I just said up-and-comer. That is definitely what Jordan Peterson is. He was a really beloved figure at Kansas a couple years ago when they were having their success under Lance Leipold and really getting that thing turned around at first. Jordan Peterson was a big part of the defense. He worked a lot with the secondary, which is where Kansas was so good on the back end of those defenses. And I just know Kansas fans were pretty distraught that he wound up at K-State as the defensive coordinator. They really wanted to see him stick around in Lawrence and or come back as the DC. He brings a ton of energy. Interviewing him is very fun. That's a guy you can see why he is a very good recruiter and really appeals to players. Like, he just brings a lot of energy. And I think Texas A&M would have loved to have kept him, tried to keep him around, but for his career, I think this was the better move. Come run the show, and with a guy that you're tight with and trust in Collin Klein. And it is, you're right, like, hey, first time at the Power 4 level being a full-time defensive coordinator, but K-State's hired a lot of experience around him on the staff. One of the things that Collin has done that I think has been great is put in a really large staff, not just like the full-time assistants, but like also support staff. And there are 3 other coaches besides Peterson who have defensive coordinator experience that are on the staff. So he's going to have a lot of help from veteran coaches who have been there, and he'll bring obviously the energy and the coaching talent and acumen that he has as a guy that's definitely on the way up. So I'm excited about it. I love what they did with the defensive staff. I love what they did in the portal on defense, which I think is obviously spearheaded by Peterson and his energy. So I think there's a really high ceiling on that side of the ball.
Klein praised his linebacker group as one of the standout units from this spring. He mentioned Makai Mason and Rex Van Wy among those that he mentioned. How much of that group can elevate this defense in 2026? Because I know there were times last season that that side of the ball really struggled stopping things up.
Yeah, and they lost Austin Romaine, their best linebacker, who's now at Texas Tech. So that was, they took some big hits personnel-wise, especially if you're looking at the defense, right? Like Austin Romaine, their best linebacker, went to Texas Tech. Their 2 best pass rushers are now at Indiana, playing for the defending national champs. So they do have to replace a lot. I will say that. There's no getting around that. But Makai Mason is a guy they love, Louisiana Tech transfer. Heard nothing but great things about him in the spring. I think they'll be relying on him a lot. They have some younger guys, like a Darian Whitaker has drawn a lot of praise. Jacoby Oliphant is another guy in the portal that I think can play a big role there. Rex Van Wy's been around for a while, and I think K-State fans at this point are kind of like, okay, like we've seen that. He hasn't really been a standout, but you're right. There was a lot of praise going his way in the spring about what he has brought to the table and that he may be taking a step forward. And you never know. When you change a defensive coordinator, totally different system, maybe that frees some things up for you. So, yeah, I think linebacker will be pretty crucial. Asa Newsom's another name I would throw in there too. He was a really high-level recruit that's dealt with 2 major knee surgeries since he's been here. If he can ever stay healthy, people have always felt like he has a really high ceiling too. But Makai Mason is the one that I would circle that I think they feel like he's the guy that can be the real stud in that unit.
That's going to do it for this episode. It was produced by Garrett Glauser. A big thanks to John Kurtz and Ryan Decker for joining the show. Coming up on Thursday's episode, we tell you the story of Taylor Talbot. She started going blind early in life and has since competed in the Summer Paralympic Games. Now she's attempting to return to the Games, but this time as a triathlete. We'll tell you how it's going and how a triathlon guru from the University of Arizona has taken her on as a pupil. That's coming up this Thursday on Big Stories. I'm Cleon Wall, and Big Stories is a production of BYU Radio.